All right, greetings, all of you Unreal Houdini users. This is Professor Chris, and what I am doing is I was preparing a lecture for my students, and I realized, hey, guess what? Houdini and Side Effects has done. They have removed the instancing inside of the digital asset, so you can't do it by default in the Unreal Engine anymore when you're doing a Houdini engine. You have to now use a new technique, which I'm going to show you today. So basically, I'm going to show you three types of techniques to do when working with the Houdini engine and working with working with instancing. So in order to get things started, I'm just going to create a geometry node here. All right, we've got our geometry. I don't really care what the name is because I just care about the digital asset. I'm going to go ahead and throw down a grid. All right, we've got our grid, but it's too big. I'm going to just make them a little small, 2 by 2, and we want 2 rows by 2 columns. Okay, we've got a nice simple grid here, so let's go ahead and propagate it with some boxes. So I'm going to go ahead and look myself for a box. All right, we've got a box in here. Let's make this box real dinky. Uniform scale, 0.1. And what I'm going to do is do a copy to points. And then we've got the copy to points going right at it here. And we got there. And then, okay, we've good. We've got our box copying to the points. So ultimately what we've done was we propagated this box into every one of the points on the grid here. And I'm going to throw an output node on here just to be thorough. Dude, look at that. They started making them blue. Very cool. What did they stop? Oh, that's outcrops. We don't want outcrops. We want outputs. Old Old man dyslexia kicking in again. Thank you very much. All right, so now we've got this. So let's go ahead and collect all this stuff. I'm going to put this into a subnetwork, and I'm going to call this subnetwork Mr. Instancer. Okay. Now I'm going to right click on this, turn this into a digital asset. Mr. Instancer, I'm going to go ahead and give this a capital. And I'm going to get rid of the namespace, get rid of the version, and I'm just go ahead and make sure that it is in the proper place. So I'm going to go to my project, go to the job. Okay, I'm going to put it in my happy folder because not because I'm really am excited about the new version of Houdini. Is happy is because it stands for Houdini Engine API, which is what the Houdini Engine used to be called back in its infancy. So I'm going to go ahead and click over into this, click accept. And so there is our Houdini Engine, Foundations, Happy, SOP, Mr. Instancer, HDANC, Create. All right, we're just going to leave it as is for now. Now what we're going to do ahead and bring this digital asset into Unreal. And so here's my, oh, there's my old version that didn't work. I'm going to get rid of that sucker. All right, so pretend it didn't exist. You didn't see that. So here we have the new version of Mr. Instancer. We're going to drop that right in here. Okay, let's see if Houdini still barfs on it. We'll go drop that in here. Cooking along. And it doesn't work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of Unreal Engine real quick. I'm going to go and reboot Unreal. Do not save onto this. And so, well, this is what you get for when you work on things live. You get real crazy stuff going on here, and sometimes stuff just does not work the way you want it to. And so sometimes you have to kick Unreal or kick Houdini in the head and say, "Work, would you, you son of a gun?" All right. So there is my Unreal, but I don't want Roberto and Squidward hanging out. So I'm going to click over here, create myself a new level. And then hopefully, do I have my digital asset still in there? No. All right, so let's see if we can get that digital asset back in here again. All right, we're going to go into my project. Here's my happy. Mr. Instance, let's drop this back in here. Okay, good. All right, let's go ahead and see if this works now. And if this doesn't work, I'm just going to sit here and cry. Okay, it does work. So all we did, we need to kick Unreal and kick Houdini in the head. Okay, the reason why I wanted to show you this is because we come over here to the outputs, the Houdini outputs, and this is a SOP Mr. Instancer, blah, 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 blah. And there it is. It says, okay, it's got this like abstract icon, refined proxy. I'm going to go ahead and click on that and then open it up again. And if we're going to double click this, take a look at what's going on, we can see that what Houdini Engine and Unreal did was it took every instance of the cube and it duplicated it once for every one of the points. And so now, instead of just having a simple instance of say, okay, we've got 8 points, we've got 8 individual points and a whole bunch of vertices, we're going to have that times 4. And that's a little bit wasteful and so forth. So there's got to be an easier way. So let's go ahead and do this a little bit smarter. So I'm going to come back to Houdini. I drop inside my digital asset. And now I'll come over here to the copy to points. And then I'm going to say pack an instance. Now, if we look over here and we say pack an instance, go to our geometry, we see that there are now only 4 points. Before, we didn't have that off. We had a whole bunch of points. We had daggone, 32 points. Well, that kind of makes sense. 8 times 4 is 32. But now we're going to put on a pack an instance where I have 4 points on here. Aha. So we've got an instance of the cube being instanced at every one of the 4 points. So in the 4 points, that's all that really matters. All right. So we're going to look at that now. We're going to go ahead and save this digital asset. And then we're going to come on over here back to Unreal. We're going to rebuild. And it blinked, but nothing really happened. Okay, nice. Not thrilling, but nice. All right, but if we come over here, we see that on the outputs, we no longer have that 4-sided polygon being outputted in the output. We have 4 instances of the cube. And we look over here, and so here's our basic cube, and it's being duplicated 4 times. We say, okay, so we're getting a little bit clever now, and we're starting to take advantage of our size. But what if you are not too excited about working with cubes, which is understandable? It's just not that overall exciting. So let's go back to Houdini and see if we can now dynamically change all that into Unreal. Okay, they provide an opportunity to do this, and this is stored in the input for subnetwork input number 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a switch SOP. And I'm going to put the switch SOP on here and put that in there. So instead of, right now in our network, we can either use the Houdini default stuff, or we can use whatever's coming in subnetwork number 1. I'm going to go ahead and modify the data a little bit to give it a little bit more dynamic behavior. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this switch for the select input. I'm going to put this into here. And then this is going to be, I'm going to call this uniform. And so I'm going to change it into menu. So I'm going to use the menu. And so for menu 1, we want to put that for the default. And if we go on to the other one to use the Unreal, I'm going to change the input to 1. We're going to call it Unreal. All right, so now we can choose whether we want it to be default or Unreal. If I go ahead and click Accept, that goes ahead and saves the digital asset. And so now we should be good to go. I'm going to come back to Unreal, and I'm going to rebake this bad boy. And once again, nice. People are going, come on, Chris, you're killing me. You've rebuilt the damn engine twice already, and I don't see anything. Okay, but look at that. In the uniform, if there's now the parameter now has been exposed, and now we're looking at the default. All right, if I change that to Unreal, it's going to think, and it's going to go, hey, wait, I don't understand what's going on here. I don't see anything. Okay, so this is the subnetwork input number 1 has now been wired into our network. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this over to Oh, something like the bench. SM underscore bench. All right. Didn't find it. Come on. Give it to me. SM underscore bench. Oh, I know what I want. It's chair. I've got bench on the brain. All right, we put that in here, and now it now instances each one of the Unreal benches into that plate. But the good folks at Side Effects realized that, hey, they may not that information is coming in, as it didn't transfer any of the orientation. So we might have to adjust the orientation ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and come down here, click on 90 for that. And whoa, whoa, lo and behold, there is our chairs. Each one of them has been rotated 90 degrees. And thank you very much. We now have a pretty good instance going on here. Okay, so that shows two of the techniques. So what if we wanted to show the third technique, and that is to um, have the total control into Houdini and let Houdini control all of the instancing. And so I'm going to come back to Houdini here. And so now we have the subnetwork coming in here, and we have the grid. But let's just say that we didn't want to have a grid. We just wanted, well, yeah, let's say that we want to have a grid. We still have the grid, but in order to get this done, we now have to use a new attribute called the Unreal attribute. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this over here, and I'm going to create one more switch. And now we could either come from here to there, or we can come that into the input here. Okay, if we look at that, this is really nutso here. We've got the box being, instance of every one of the cubes, but well, that's interesting. But that's kind of like what I wanted to. You'll notice now that for every one copy the points. Oh, no, we want. This is not what I want. Yeah, I just realized that I put my switch into the wrong place. So I'm going to move this over here, and then I'm going to put my switch. Okay, so we still want it coming from here, but come on, let's work with me. Okay, so that's what's coming out of here, and that's what's coming into there. And so let's go ahead, and we got the switch and copy the points, but that's not what we exactly are looking for. So we want to have what here is coming into the copy the points. And so we are still seeing our stuff coming over here, but now we're coming from the grid. Now, here's where the interesting part comes in, gang. All right, we've got the grid, and what we have to do now is put in a Unreal instance attribute for every one of these points in our grid or in our input or whatever we're going to have here. So if we want to have here, we're going to put in a attribute create. All right, I'm going to drop that right in here. And the name of the attribute I'm going to create is Unreal Instance. All right, we've got Unreal Instance in here. And I'm going to go ahead and change the class. We want to convert all the points. The type, we're going to change this to a string. And here is the information that we want over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop into my Unreal session, and I'm going to get some default content. I want to get the location of a rock, or let's get in fact let's get some information from here. Starter content. Let's get a bush. Yeah. So what I do is I'm going to grab my bush and put this over here. No. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come back over into Unreal. Show you what I'm doing here. Here we got the bush. We're going to right click on that bush, say copy object path, and then I'm going to come over here, drop that in here, and paste values. All right, so we have game content, starter comment. Now, I've played around with this a lot, and you could use either of the two paths on here. So here we have the there we have the object path, but we could also come on over here to the reference, and I'm going to go ahead, copy the reference, come back over here to Houdini, and we can push that right into here in the string, and paste values, and we got the script engine static mesh. Well, that's not kind of like what I'm looking for. That's a little bit awkward, and you have to type in that stuff all the time, so I'm just going to go ahead and just put this back over here, and I'm going to grab my object path, come back over to Houdini, I paste that back in there, and so that should be good enough to go. All right, so basically what we're saying is, okay, now what we want to do is create a switch over here. Do we want to have this Unreal instance overriding whatever's coming over here? So do we want this? Oh, so what do we want here? Well, let's expose this string while we're at it, because we could change this to a custom. And so here it is. We have our Unreal instance here. I'm going to go ahead and expose this. And then here's the string. I'm going to change the name over here to custom object. Well, in fact, let's just call this, custom. And we're going to come over here. I'm going to click accept. And so now what I'm going to do is we're telling Unreal to say, hey, we've got this override instance here. So for every one of these points now, we want to instance whatever we have inside of our string instead of what's coming on over here. Is that going to work? Well, we're going to have to find out. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save Mr. Instance. I'm going to come back over to Unreal. Here we go to the Mr. Instancer. I'm going to swing on over here. I'm going to hit the rebuild. And nothing happens. Okay. It says we're using the Unreal. So let's just change this back to default. Okay. And so we find out that our bush is right. And I'm going, maybe I misspelled bush or something. I don't know. I'm going to click over here to the content drawer. I'm going to go and grab. I'm going to move this up here a little bit. So I'm going to grab the bush. Just push this right in here to make sure I get the right name. Does anything change? Nope. Nothing changed here, folks. Okay. So no, sir. Didn't like it. All right. So what we got to do here is come on over here. There is a gotcha in this new implementation, and I don't know if anyone else in the world is doing this right now. If I'm the first person, then la-di-da. But what we got is the grid here is coming across, and this is still geometry. And we got over here is the Unreal Create. And so what we're doing is coming over here. Okay, if you have any kind of actual geometry other than points coming into the Unreal instance, it's going to go, no, sir, I don't like it. And it's not going to do anything. And so what we got to do is we got to convert whatever is in here into just points. And so I found that the easy way of doing that is just go ahead and drop this, hit the delete. All right, we've got the delete SOP going in here. And so what I want to do is delete primitives. And so the pattern, let's say we're just going to put this for the group. Let's just put all. And so it disappears, but I'm going to say keep points. And then we do have our points in here. If you don't believe me, click on here. We can see the points coming in here. And so now all we do is having pure points coming into the situation. And so now let's test to see if this works. All right, so I'm going to click over here to Assets, go to Edit, Save Asset, Mr. Instancer. Now I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to hit Rebuild. And still nothing happens. All right, we've got the custom prop in here. The Unreal. Uh-oh. Okay, there's the Unreal stuff. The default, we've lost all that juicy information because things are changing, but we do know that things are on the side. So I realize that what we got to do is we got to get rid of any kind of other input coming over here because Unreal is going to use is like, oh, okay, if you've already got objects on your points, we're not going to replace them. You've got to do it yourself. You say, really? Okay, so what you got to do is you got to get rid of all of these. You got to get rid of all of these points on here. So what we had to do, I'll come back into Houdini. And so what we got to do is we've got our object here. And so everything is cool. And so what we have to do now is get rid of all of our incoming geometry coming out of here. So what we're going to do is on this switch, I'm going to put that over here. And then on for this other switch, I'm going to expose this object. And so I'm going to come on over here to the assets, go to the asset properties. And so for this switch, I'm going to go ahead and grab this input coming over here. And so for this switch, I'm going to call this use custom instead of using the other geometry. And then I'm going to click accept. Oh, yeah, okay, so we've got that on here. That's a little bit different what I wanted to do originally, but that's okay. So I'm going to click this over here, use custom, and I'm going to put that custom underneath here. So it should organize a little bit better. So I'm going to click accept. And so we've got this coming in here. So now let's go back to Unreal. Hope you're still with me. I'm going to rebuild. And now I'm going to go over here and say use custom. And it says, oh, that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 1. And so I'm going to use my custom network, and it's going to, ignore anything else that Houdini was on there. And lo and behold, there it is. And so now we have got total control over the instancing over here. So if we wanted to put something else in here, like, I don't know, let's go, now we have the couch. It's not a bench, it's a couch. So I drop this in here. And so now we have that, and it's going into there. Okay, so what we've discussed here is that there are 3 instancing techniques that can be used for getting Houdini information into Unreal. And just to go over these again, what we could do is we could just leave things as is and then just do the instancing ourselves and bringing things in. Or we could come in here and then use the subnetwork and have the subnetwork provide whatever kind of instances. But if we really want to have minute control and then come over the distribution, like now if we wanted to come over here and put the grid point in here and to Unreal, I could get rid of this delete and put something like a scatter stop in here. Put that going into there. And let's just say instead of 1,000 points, let's not use 1,000 points. That look could be pretty obnoxious. Yeah, it's getting obnoxious. Let's just change it to like 10. Okay, so we organize that into there. So now we have a scatter coming in here. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to come back into Unreal. And we are going to go and rebuild. And so we have 10 versions of our couch. Let's get our bushes back here so it looks a little bit more like what we were dealing with before. And so now we have 10 versions of our bush going in here. And so we can control now our digital assets to control the distribution, and we can control in multiple objects because whenever we have a Houdini instance, we can merge multiple objects into each other, and we can create multiple objects and multiple things being instanced at the same time, which is giving you the look and feel of a little bit more like a PCG. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover with you folks today. Thank you very much for putting up with all my shenanigans and my craziness, and I look forward to talking with you next time.